In the far reaches of the world, where the horizon shimmers like molten gold and the wind carries the sound of ages long forgotten, there lies a desert that many believe they understand, yet almost no one truly knows. The Sahara. A name that conjures images of endless dunes, scorching heat, and emptiness. But behind that familiar picture hides a truth so vast, so ancient, and so astonishing that it almost feels forbidden, like opening a door humanity was never meant to open. Because the Sahara you see today is only a mask. Beneath its sands and stone plains lies the memory of a world that once breathed with life. A world where waters flowed with the strength of rivers, where grasslands stretched to the horizon, where animals, now vanished, roamed without fear, and humans built structures aligned to the stars. This is the Sahara that time tried to bury, a forgotten realm whose echoes whisper through rocks, fossils, and fragments of lost civilizations. And tonight, we walk into that forgotten world. But to understand its story, you must first erase everything you think a desert is. Close your eyes and imagine standing not in a sea of sand, but in a vast expanse of ancient rock, jagged cliffs, gravel plains, stone fields stretching endlessly, carved by winds older than history itself. For as endless as the dunes appear, they make up only a small part of the Sahara. Most of this desert is a monument of stone, a colossal skeleton of the Earth's past, holding secrets that waited millions of years for someone to listen. If you kneel beside one of those stones, brush away the dust, and look closer, the desert begins to speak. In some places, you might find the outline of a ripple frozen in rock, evidence of water that once rolled through this land with the strength of an ancient sea. In others, you might pick up the curved tooth of a long-dead creature, polished by the wind but unmistakable in shape. And in certain remote corners, you will find something even more extraordinary: the bones of whales, resting where no ocean has touched in 40 million years. Yes, whales in the desert. Their skulls, their vertebrae, even the delicate bones of their flippers lie scattered across what was once a coastline. Standing among them, listening to the silent heat, you can almost hear a distant splash, an echo of a time when the Sahara was not a wasteland, but a cradle of ocean life. But that is only the beginning of the Sahara's transformation, because millions of years later, it changed again. The desert dried, but it was not dead. Its sands waited. Its stones remembered. And then, roughly 10,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened. The skies shifted. The earth tilted by the slightest angle, and with that subtle celestial motion, rain returned. Storms rolled across the land. Rivers carved new paths. Lakes the size of small seas spread across the basin. Grasslands rose. Forests blossomed. And the Sahara bloomed into green. Imagine waking in that ancient landscape. Dew glittering softly on tall grass. Giant antelopes grazing under the sunrise. Crocodiles gliding through deep lakes. Hippos bathing in the cool shallows. Elephants wandering across plains rich with life. All of this in the Sahara, an Eden where survival thrived, not suffered. At the heart of this reborn world flowed a river so vast, so mighty, and so utterly forgotten that only in recent decades have we begun to understand its true scale. Scientists call it the Taman Rasset. But you can think of it as the Sahara's lost Nile. Its waters surged from the mountains of Central Africa, winding through what is now desert, carving valleys still visible today from space, before finally emptying into the Atlantic Ocean. A river that could have sustained millions. A river that shaped entire ecosystems. And yet, for thousands of years, no one knew it existed. Only when satellites pierced the veil of sand did its ghostly traces come to light. And along this river, its banks lush, fertile, alive, humans found a home. They settled beside lakes that stretched farther than the eye could see. They hunted, fished, and raised families in a land that felt eternal. They painted the walls of rocky shelters with images of their daily life: graceful cattle, playful children, women dancing in celebration, warriors crossing rivers, animals long vanished. Each painting is a voice from a forgotten people. A whisper saying, "We were here. We lived. We loved. We belong to a Sahara you can no longer imagine." But even more astonishing is what they built. Deep in the desert, in a place called Nabta Playa, early humans erected something that still puzzles archaeologists today: a stone circle older than Stonehenge. Aligned with almost perfect astronomical precision, it marked the rhythms of the stars, the sun, and the seasons. Imagine those early people, herders, hunters, families, standing together on a vast savanna. Not desert, but rolling green fields. Watching the sky, learning its language, marking its cycles in stone. They built not for shelters, but for time itself. They carved meaning into the earth long before great civilizations rose along the Nile or the Tigris. But nothing in history lasts unchanged. Slowly, the rains began to fade. The orbital cycle that had brought life shifted again, inch by inch. The lakes shrank. The grass turned brittle. Rivers thinned into streams, then disappeared into the dust. Animals retreated or perished. The people gathered their belongings, looked to the sky one last time, and began to move. Many traveled east, toward the Nile, giving birth to cultures that would build kingdoms. And the Sahara returned to silence. This time, the land dried with finality. The rivers vanished beneath the sand. The lakes evaporated into shimmering mirages. The wind reclaimed everything. It swept across the plains with a voice like an ancient god, covering the past grain by grain. The paintings remained, but faded. The stone circle endured, but half-buried. The bones of whales waited patiently for someone to rediscover them. And then, deep in the Libyan desert, the Sahara produced one final mystery. One final clue to its violent past. A material so rare, so beautiful, and so inexplicable that even today it sparks debate. Libyan Desert Glass. Golden yellow. Smooth like crystal. Scattered across hundreds of kilometers. Formed at temperatures far hotter than any known volcano can produce. Some believe it was created by a meteorite impact so powerful it vaporized the land itself, melting the sand into glass. Others propose an airburst in the sky, a fireball that turned the desert floor into a glowing lake of molten light. Whatever its origin, ancient Egyptians treasured it. They carved it into amulets, placed it in jewelry, and even set a piece into the pectoral of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. To them it was not just glass. It was a fragment of the heavens. And perhaps they were right. Because when you hold a piece of desert glass in your hand, it feels almost alive. It glows in the sunlight with the color of frozen dawn. It is the desert's memory made solid, a reminder that the Sahara is not a dead place, but a living story written by fire, water, wind, and time. And that story is still unfolding. For the same orbital cycles that once turned the Sahara green may do so again. Tens of thousands of years in the future, the rains may return. Lakes may fill once more. Grass may rise through the sand. And the desert, in its patient wisdom, may bloom again. But there is a shadow in this vision. Human-made climate change threatens to disrupt the ancient rhythms that once revived the land. The cycles are delicate, balanced on the edge of cosmic precision. And already, we have begun to rewrite the script. Still, the desert endures. Watching, waiting, remembering. And as we walk across its surface, whether in imagination or in reality, we become tiny figures moving across a vast, ancient stage. A stage older than civilization. Older than humanity. Older than memory itself. Every stone beneath our feet is a relic. Every dune is a chapter. Every fossil, every painting, every shard of desert glass is a voice from the deep past, calling out across the silence. Let me tell you something. If journeys like this stir your curiosity, If the forgotten corners of our world whisper to you the way they whisper to me, then you may find it worthwhile to stay close, to follow these stories as they unfold, to listen as we uncover more secrets together. Sometimes the past feels distant, but often it is right beneath our feet, waiting for someone who cares enough to look deeper. Because that is the gift of the Sahara. It reminds us that the world is not static. It changes. It transforms. It dies, and it is reborn. And in its transformations, it leaves behind clues, traces of worlds that once were, and worlds that may one day return. As the sun sets over the dunes, the heat softens, and the shadows stretch across the sand like fingers reaching into the past. The wind carries the scent of stone and silence. And the desert, in that moment, becomes a mirror. A mirror reflecting not just ancient lakes or vanished rivers, but us. Our fragility. Our resilience. Our impermanence. Our desire to understand where we come from, even though the answers are scattered in fragments. What we learn from the Sahara is simple, yet profound. Nothing in this world is truly lost. Not entirely. The earth remembers everything. And if we listen closely, if we open our eyes and allow ourselves to wander through the ruins of forgotten ages, we may rediscover pieces of ourselves buried in the sand. The Sahara is more than a desert. It is a reminder that history is alive, that the planet breathes, and that beneath the surface of everything we think we know, there lies a deeper, older truth waiting to be uncovered. And perhaps in the end, the greatest mystery is not what the desert once was, but what it will be again. Thank you for walking with me into the hidden past. May the echoes of this ancient world stay with you long after the sands grow quiet.